Well, let's get this show on the road. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Hannah Rosa Litton. I'm from Gatsby, a solutions engineer at Gatsby. I'm here to talk about Gatsby and Gatsby Cloud. And also by the end of this session, you'll be able to get yourself a Gatsby Cloud account, add your Gatsby site, make changes, and work with your CMS and get yourself going. So let's get started. So in today's webinar, these are the topics I'm covering: how to sign up, connecting to your Gatsby code, whether using GitLab, Bitbucket, GitHub, adding your site, whether it's built or not, connecting to a content management system. For this webinar, I'm going to be using Contentful. Looking at how you can see your previews from Contentful and from Gatsby Cloud. And we'll be covering hosting and workspaces as I go along. So first and foremost, we have many customers. And why are they choosing Gatsby? Well, Gatsby is a static site generator. And basically, when it was founded, the founders said that most of the sites on the internet are static, meaning they don't really change that much. So why create all these dynamic, functionality when the content stays the same, which is why Gatsby was born. And Gatsby already added a lot of the complexities in previous frameworks. It reduced that. It simplified all the boilerplates. It simplified all the decisions you need to make to architect your site. So you can really focus on what your business does best. So Gatsby is built for performance. It allows you to source data from any of your sources. It's very secure and highly scalable. And it's focused on two audiences: the developers and the marketers, or the content creators. So if you're a content creator, you don't have to write a single line of React code or JavaScript. You can work directly in your CMS. And developers, again, you can do what you do, build React components, and you don't have to do anything for the content creator because they have their own workflow that they can focus on. So we at Gatsby can display all of the content, whether you're coming from the CMS side or you're working on directly on your IDE. You can see your changes and preview and deploy them in Gatsby Cloud. So again, Gatsby is a static site generator. And when we introduced the latest version of Gatsby, which is Gatsby 4, we included two more rendering modes. And that is the first, static rendering, and server-side rendering. And I'm actually going to show you an example of those. But let me just explain what those are, just so you understand. So the first, static rendering, allows you to defer pages that are not critical to your site. So a very good example is maybe you have news articles or blog posts that are 2 to 3 years old, and maybe you made a major code or configuration change. Typically, Gatsby will have to build your entire site, but you can defer those pages so your build times would increase or would decrease. And so you could get your content up there much faster. And then we also introduced server-side rendering, which allows you to render pages on demand. So all of these is now is deployed on Gatsby Cloud, where you can easily create all of your integrations. You can collaborate with developers and content creators, deliver the pages. These Gatsby Cloud is powered by CDN from Fastly, and you can easily organize your workspaces, your content through workspaces. We have over 2,500 plugins, which allows you to source your content directly. A lot of these plugins are community plugins, so they're managed by a large community that we are actually starting to organize and ensuring that they stay up to date. And in addition, we do have plugins that are maintained by Gatsby itself. I am going to show you how you can collaborate with each other, developers and marketers, and that's the preview build that we offer in Gatsby Cloud, and which is also powered by Fastly. And then I'm going to be covering workspaces is a way to organize all your web properties. So with that, let's just go straight into the demo. So the first thing you'll have to do is sign up for a Gatsby Cloud account, which is very simple. If you don't have one yet, just go to gatsbyjs.com, click sign up for free. You basically enter your credentials. And when you hit next, just going to use this as my workflow, Gatsby then will ask you for your VCS provider. So now here in this screenshot, you see GitHub and GitLab. We've added Bitbucket as another VCS provider. So that's another choice. Once you set that up, Gatsby Cloud will ask, or Gatsby will ask for permission. You authorize it, and you can set up Gatsby Cloud so it can access multiple repositories or just a few repositories. So you have that flexibility. So that's as simple as it is. And so let's actually go into my Gatsby Cloud account. So once you create your Gatsby account, you're going to get what we call a workspace. So this, you can see I have many workspaces here, but if you're just brand new, this is the view you're going to see. You just name your workspace, you pick a plan. Typically, you start with professional, and then you review it. So the next thing you do after you create your workspace is you add sites. So here you can see my workspace is called Gatsby Sales, and here I have 4 sites. So each site could represent an environment. So for example, this first one could be my prod environment. All the rest could be my staging, my dev, QA, or a workspace can be, if you're an agency, it could be a client's name, and then it could be their environments. Or you could make a workspace your prod environment and all of the different sites, a sort of different versions of that. So you really can design it however you want, but again, depending on your budget, because each workspace is going to cost you. So typically, the way we see our customers use it is one workspace per project, and then the different environments. So let's add a site. So to add a site, it's quite simple. Click add a site, and then look at your Git repo where you would like your code to be sourced from. I'm going to use my own personal Git repo, and then look for a Gatsby site. So here I have a Sanity, I set up a Sanity blog. Sanity is one of the CMSs we support. Now choose the branch you'd like Gatsby to source it from. I'm going to use my demo setup branch. And the root folder here is where the Gatsby config file lives. Again, different CMSs have different setup. With Sanity, they typically have like a Gatsby Studios folder and then a website folder. If you're using other CMSs, typically Gatsby config is in the root. So I'm going to click next, and basically what Gatsby is going to do is look for the CMS. If there's anything in your CMS file that it needs, like environment variables, as you can see here, it needs my Sanity read token. So what I'm going to do is actually add that in here. I can bulk add it. There are other CMSs where it will automatically do that for you, but in case it doesn't, this is the way you should do it, because sometimes this Gatsby is not able to see the config file. But basically, you add your credentials here, whatever you need for build and preview, click save, and then build your site. So that it's as simple as that. So now Gatsby will start building. So now let's imagine the site has been finished. I'm going to switch to my Contentful site. So the things that I want you to know that you have within your Gatsby workspace are the following. So if you take a look in your site settings, this is where you will see your configuration, like where you got the data source from, and you can change that in case, you know, maybe you want Gatsby to display a different branch. You have your environment variables here. This portion here are your webhooks. So if you wanted to trigger, let's say a Gatsby build from, you know, an API, or, you know, you have a script that, you know, maybe you have your own content management system, which a lot of our customers have, you can just copy this webhook here for your builds, and Gatsby can trigger that. When you set up your content management system for previews, you would need this preview webhook within your content management system. So for example, in Contentful, there's a section there where you can add Gatsby Cloud as an app, and there you add your preview webhook. In fact, let me show you what that looks like. So I'm in Contentful now. I'm looking at my apps. See here, I have a Gatsby Cloud app. And if you want previews within Contentful, you would need to add this preview webhook, which you got from your Gatsby Cloud setting here, this same preview webhook. And then this is the latest thing we added a few months ago, which is we call Content Sync. Now you need to add that here. And also make sure that the CMS preview URL is the same as your Gatsby Cloud preview URL, which you can find right here. So what is Content Sync? So Content Sync is our ability for content creators to preview the content they're working on in context. So what that means is, if I'm working on a page in Contentful and it's not the home page, it's one of the links, when I click preview within Contentful, it will send me directly to that page. In the past, it wouldn't do that. Gatsby preview within your CMS would send you, let's say, to the home page, and you as the content creator would need to know how to navigate. So it's very nice to have Content Sync, because then you'll be taken to the actual page you're working on. The other thing I want you to know is that we also provide notifications, which is great. You could integrate this webhook with Slack. It's got a built-in integration, or you can use the webhook to send you a notification in email. I use this a lot because I, work on a number of Gatsby Cloud sites. So I'd like to be notified when one of them build succeeds or even fails. So I have this integration. And the other thing you can do as well within Gatsby Cloud is to add access control within your preview and your builds. Oftentimes, maybe you're working on a new portion of your site and you don't want the world to see it. So you can password protect or add a login in your preview builds. So that's the key things I wanted you to be aware of when you are in Gatsby Cloud and set up your workspace. Now let's look at a workflow where I'm a developer and I'm working on, a portion of the page. So typically that workflow looks like you have a, as a developer, I have a branch. I create a branch, and then I trigger a pull request. So what's nice is pull requests appear in Gatsby Cloud here under pull requests. So you can see I've got, 3 different branches that I'm working on here. And what's nice is I could actually look at these builds as a preview build and compare this to my production. And you would know that it's a preview build because of the domain extension. It's a GTSBIO. This extension is what we call a preview build. So you can preview your pull requests and compare it to your main build. And then when when you're ready to merge it, you just do your merge command the same way you do in GitHub. Click merge, and Gatsby Cloud will create a new build with a merge. So that's a typical way for developers to work together. Another thing too that's nice with Gatsby Cloud is if, let's say, you want to, you published a build on production, and your CMO said, hey, we've changed our strategy, that campaign we were running, we don't want it to be on the homepage anymore. Can we revert to a previous build? So you can within Gatsby Cloud. If you look at your production history, we can revert to a build maybe a month ago. All you need to do is click publish here, and Gatsby Cloud would revert to a previous build. So those are the very nice things that you have when you are using Gatsby Cloud and Workspaces. So that's the typical developer workflow. Now let me switch gears and now put on my content creator marketing hat and look at how Gatsby Cloud works from that perspective. Okay, so as a content creator, I'm in charge of creating the content from my content management system. And in this case, you saw it was Contentful. So this is the page that's in production, and there is some content here that has been published that shouldn't have been. So you, in a panic, are gonna have to fix this. And thankfully, you can do this directly in Contentful. So I'm gonna go to my Contentful page, look at my content, and this is the area where you were working on, and for some reason it got published by accident. So let's add the new content, and let's actually add the new content and fix this. Let's say I don't have the actual text, but let's just say new content is here. And I'm going to change my image to the right one. Let's put it there. You saw that if you notice quickly, there was, Gatsby and Contentful is saying it's saving. But actually, let's preview this because we want to see what this looks like before it's being published, right? So that's the, the beauty of Gatsby Cloud. You can preview in context. So as you see, Gatsby Cloud took me to the actual page I was fixing, and it's saying it's building a new preview. And I click, and here it is. This is the new preview with the new content. Now you can share this link with your teammates. Just copy the link, share it. Now let's just say everybody's happy. Thank you for fixing that. You as a content creator just publish the changes and you're done. Didn't have to write a line of code. Didn't have to go into GitHub, write React or any of that. You just made your change right there in Gatsby Cloud. So now back in Gatsby Cloud, if I refresh my page, it will show me that some new content from Contentful has been added. And there we go. Data updated from Contentful, built in 6 seconds, deployed in 1 second. Now that was very fast because, well, if I look at my raw logs, I can see that Gatsby actually just only saw that only one entry was updated. And because we have incremental builds, Gatsby will only build that piece of content. So again, that's why it was very fast. The other thing I want to also point out is this site also incorporates the new rendering modes that I talked about. So deferred static generation and static server-side rendering. So here in this site, if I go to it, what is deferred are, I have a blog section here. And what is deferred are content pieces that are older than June 23. So you notice when I clicked on that link, it took a few seconds for it to pop up, and that's because it was deferred. But if I click on it again, you saw how fast that was. So when you defer it, the first time you click on it, it's going to be delayed, but this content will now be cached. So the next time anyone clicks on that content, it's going to be very snappy fast, the way you know Gatsby to be. In terms of server-side rendering, this is what that would be looking like. So this portion of the page actually calls a food recipe API. So every time I click on new, it calls a new recipe. So this is an example of server-side rendering. And I think I covered all of the portions of the demo that I wanted to. So just to recap, today we looked at, first how you sign up for a Gatsby Cloud account. Again, you can use your VCS provider. You can even incorporate single sign-on if you're using Okta or Active Directory like Azure. You can incorporate that into your sign-up process. We looked at adding a site. I use Sanity here, but you can use any CMS, or you can even use any, if you have a custom content management system, you can easily add that. Just remember to add all of your environment variables, both build and preview. And then if you want to have CMS previews, you need to add this preview webhook, and also content sync. Again, may not be applicable if you have a custom CMS, but you can add content sync if you have a supported CMS like Contentful, Sanity, and so on. This build webhook you could use to trigger if you're running a script and maybe you have a custom CMS, you use that build. But then most of the time, if you're using a supported CMS, all those webhooks will be added. Then we looked at the developer workflow and saw how easily it is you can collaborate and compare your pull requests with production. And if things look good, you can merge it using just GitHub, merge it the way you do in GitHub. And then if you want to revert to a previous build, you can easily go look at your production history and click publish to revert. So that was our developer workflow. And then from a content creator workflow, we looked at how easily you can create, make changes within your CMS, look at a preview. Once it's good, publish the change. Again, all without accessing any code. So that's today's Gatsby 101 webinar. If there are any questions, now is the time. So Aaron, just checking to see if we have questions. I don't see any in the chat. Oh, I do, actually. Oh, so there was a question about WordPress support. Yes, we do have support for WordPress. Actually, it's one of our more popular CMSs. We call a starter kit for WordPress. You can see it here, but if you already have a WordPress site, all you need to do would be to add the Gatsby source WordPress plugin, and you can just easily search for that. So I'll just go source WordPress, but this is the Gatsby source WordPress plugin, and add this to your Gatsby configure it, and you should be good to go. And let's see what other questions. All right. I think that's it. The next thing, I mean, what I would encourage you to do, of course, is get a Gatsby Cloud account, start playing around. But one thing that's very helpful for me, especially when I started building on Gatsby, is these source plugin sites. If you want to add certain things to your site and you don't feel like making the configuration, just search your the source plugin library, because more oftentimes it's going to be there. So let's say you're working on Marketo forms, so there's a source plugin for that. So again, that's the beauty of Gatsby, is its data layer allows you to really access a lot of data sources without having you to do major configuration. All right, with that, I think that's pretty much it. I really thank everyone for attending this webinar. We're definitely happy you choose to build Gatsby. Any questions or comments, you can send an email at support@gatsbyjs.com. That's the support team. If you have questions more about Gatsby Cloud, that's really what we focus on in the support team, or issues around Gatsby Cloud, we're here to help. With that, I thank you for your time and have a great day, everybody. Thank you.